Welcome back to Beautifully Grounded. My name is Desiree, for those of you who don't know me. Today is going to be part 2 of the 5-part Reclaim series. If you haven't seen part 1, make sure you go and check that out. And if you're new here, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. Today's topic is going to be consciousness. So, first we have to start with the difference between conscious and unconscious. So most people know the difference. Conscious is being awake, being alert, being aware, and unconscious is the part of us that is not always aware, and sometimes we do things that we don't technically think about. So with conscious, a good way to remember, conscious is using your brain and your ego. So that's the thinking part, the part that makes decisions, things like that. While unconscious is the part that kind of just comes naturally. A lot of times we do things and we don't even realize it because we're doing it unconsciously. The point of day 2 of consciousness was to bring ourselves to be more aware of being in the moment, being conscious, being present, and realizing things and taking things in that a lot of times we don't. How often do you participate in conversations where you're on your phone? You may be listening, you may hear what they're saying and be processing, but a lot of times we're on our phones. Especially nowadays, we stay on our phones. A part of being conscious is just being aware of your surroundings, taking things in. When was the last time you had a conversation and you really just sat and listened to this person talk, or listen to the sounds that were going on around us and paying attention to things that we normally don't? That unconscious part of us is our higher being. It's that inner voice, that intuition. It's things that we do without thinking. So we breathe unconsciously. We breathe. No one thinks to breathe. We just do it. It's natural. We blink. We do a lot of things unconsciously that is just natural to us. So it does take a lot of practice to connect with your unconscious mind, because we are so like in the moment. Everything we do is a means to an end. If we're having a conversation, if we are, a lot of times, especially when we're having conversations, or if we're watching something, a lot of times we don't focus on what we're watching or listening to. We pay attention in the fact that we hear it, but a lot of times we're thinking about, well, what am I going to do next? What am I going to eat later? Things like that. A lot of times our mind just runs. Now, integrating our conscious and our unconscious is where the work begins. With our unconscious mind, it's just doing without thinking, which is very scary for a lot of people. But it is something that is very valuable and can really help people out in life, especially if you suffer from anxiety or paranoia. A lot of times our thoughts is what slows us down, and I've said this plenty of times. But if we work on integrating our unconscious and conscious mind, some things may become a little bit easier, because we won't have to constantly debate back and forth with ourselves about whether we should or should not do things. But sometimes it really takes practice. Once you do something repetitively for so long, it becomes unconscious. So the reason this is important with our spiritual journey is because we aren't conscious. We don't pay attention to our unconscious mind. A lot of times we let our own mind and our own ego control everything we do. I used to be like this. I'm a person who has to question every little thing. I need to know every little detail before I can do things. And that has stopped me a lot when it comes to businesses and things like that, because I'm constantly thinking like, okay, well, yeah, it may work, but what about this and this and this and this? And it for my husband, it came so easy for him to connect with his unconscious mind, because he's a just go and do it type of person. I think too much. If I say, okay, well, I really want this, but is he going to want that? And then we have to go here, and then we have to do that. And it's horrible. I do it with everything. Well, I did it with everything. Any decision I would make, I had to think about every possible outcome. And it slowed me down so much, like constantly. One important thing that I learned from the video is that pain is unconscious. Now, if you think about that, no one ever thinks like, okay, today I want to be sad. I want to be in pain. I want to feel this hurt. I want to be emotional. No one chooses those things. is unconscious. It comes to us without us even thinking about it. And we don't think about it until we feel it. No one wants to feel that pain. It just unconsciously happens. That blew my entire mind is that the future does not exist. Now, when I heard that, I was like, okay, hold up, because I've been planning for my future all my life. I've been doing everything for my future all my life. A lot of times people are stressed and have anxiety and depressed because they are constantly thinking about the future. Well, I'm not there today, but I'll get there tomorrow. I'm not there now, but I'll get there eventually. I have to do this to get here, to do that, to do that. But if you really sit and think about it, the future doesn't exist. Future is a time that has not happened and has not come yet. Say, well, some things are just meant to happen. But if you change one little thing about the way you're thinking, you can change an entire sequence of time. So without constantly worrying about the future, we should definitely focus on now, because today's actions will determine that future that you're thinking about. But if you stress so much about the future and you constantly think about the future and you're constantly worried about the future, you won't be able to make it there. Because in that time that you spent sitting there pondering the future, trying to make plans, trying to do this, trying to do that, you've wasted time of that present day that could have been worked on to get you to where you want to be. I know, it blew my mind too. Like I said, I'm a person who has to think about every outcome with things, of businesses, of everything, literally everything. And so for me to really, that eased my mind so much, because I spent so much time stressing and being depressed and being anxious about my future that hasn't come yet, that I wasted days when I could have been growing my business. I could have been doing my videos. I could have been doing, and not thinking, and wanting to do things. I could have been doing them. Everything we do, like I said, is a means to an end. We don't live for today. We're constantly living for tomorrow. We're constantly living for, well, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen here? When is this going to happen? We don't live for now. And that's how we were raised. That's how our parents lived. That's how everyone we know most of the time has lived. Most people don't think about now. We only think about the future and what's going to be, what's going to happen. So that makes it to where we don't live in the present. And what we don't realize is that tomorrow is not promised. I mean, everybody says it and everybody goes on about it and like, oh yeah, well, tomorrow's not promised. But we don't go to the extent of saying, well, I spent all day thinking about tomorrow, and then what if tomorrow doesn't come? That was wasted time. Time is one thing you cannot get back. So we have to be more present in the now, in the present, because it's given to us. This is what we have. The future isn't there. We don't have it yet. And we don't know if we're going to make it there, so why worry about it? Just because you're not stressing about the future doesn't mean you aren't working towards your goal. What you did today is what will make you reach whatever you want to reach. That will determine that future that you're thinking about. Our unconscious mind, that little voice in your head, your intuition, your interpersonality, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, we have to pay attention to that. We have to pay attention to it without giving it power. Now, everyone has said that words are powerful, thoughts are powerful. They are. They are very powerful. They set things in stone. They can stop you from doing things that you want to do and achieve and everything. A lot of people have been stopped by their thoughts plenty of times because they thought they weren't good enough, they thought they couldn't do things, or they just thought things weren't right. We have to stop. We have to be able to acknowledge our thoughts, acknowledge what that little voice is saying, without giving it power. For example, with doing this YouTube, for me, it took a long time for me. I've wanted to do a YouTube for so long, but it took me a long time because I was constantly telling myself, like, okay, but you're not going to be good at that. You're already don't really like talking to people. This is going to bring too much attention, this and that, this and that, this and that. When what I should have done is been like, okay, I realize what I'm thinking, but why is that my story? Why is that as it is? Why do I feel that way? And after thinking about that and going back and saying, okay, why did I feel that way? I could retrace where that fear came from. I could retrace where those thoughts come from. A lot of times when I was younger, I would be told, like, no, you can't do that because it's not going to work out. And I held on to that. As kids, we're so impressionable that a lot of times we hold on to things. When people crush our dreams as kids, we hold on to that. And we continue that process on our own because we already had that set in stone for us. Like, oh no, you can't do this, you have to do this. A lot of times we don't like to face our own thoughts because sometimes they can go to dark places. But in reality, we need to face those and figure out where they're coming from. That way we can confront them and move forward. Your thoughts are not you. They are a part of you, yes, but they are not who you are. So for me, I can explain. Mine were pretty much like, okay, well, I had a lot of resentment. Like I said, I talked about this in the last video, but I had a lot of resentment, and in my mind, I was like, well, you're a bad mom. I would tell myself that. Nobody would tell me that. I would tell myself, like, you're a bad mom because sometimes you don't want to be, like, you don't want to have your kids, or sometimes you need a break, so you're a bad mom. Other moms don't need breaks, so why do you need a break? And eventually I started to believe that, like, well, geez, I am a bad mom. I kept feeling this way and feeling this way. When really I needed to acknowledge those thoughts and realize that they are not me. They are a part of me. They are part of a shadow side of myself that I hadn't faced yet. And once I finally acknowledged those thoughts and figured out where they came from and why they were the way they were, I moved past those, and now I know that that's not my story. We are the writers of our own story. We create our own destiny. We control this journey that we're on. And a lot of people haven't acknowledged that or accepted that yet, and they're just going on the ride. But we control our actions. We control what we do, what we can and can't do, and we control that inner voice. Because that's not who we are. That is a dark side of us that sometimes comes from trauma, sometimes comes from childhood things. It comes from a lot of different places. But if you don't know where it comes from, there's no beginning to heal that. And that's why it is so important to pay attention to that unconscious mind. Questions for day 2, the video. It asks, where are you using the present as a means to an end? Sacrificing the present for past drama or future salvation. For me, I was sacrificing my present time. I would stay so focused about the future because the way that I grew up. I didn't grow up in like a very bad neighborhood or anything. I'm from a small town in the country, so it wasn't really a bad space. I did go through a lot as a child and things like that, and so for me, I would constantly think back on that and think, okay, well, I'm in the situation I'm in now because I'm just like those people, or I'm just failing like they failed, or I'm not getting to where I need to be because of how I grew up. A lot of people equate their current situation to their past. And that is where most people are sacrificing that present moment, living in the past. The past is something we can't change. If we could, things would be totally different for so many people, but we can't. So what good does it do us sitting and dwelling on the past and using it as an excuse for our present situation? Everyone has been through something. Everybody's story is different. But it's our choice and our decision to grow past that. I know it is very hard for some people because I know it was very hard for me. I had so much anger inside of me that I would snap at everybody all the time. I would snap. And so for me, I was so angry because of past situations that I would let it control and dictate my mood, my life, my relationship. I would let it dictate everything. I knew that that's where I was sacrificing my present moment and using my past drama and the future salvation of, oh, okay, I need to do this to get there, and not paying attention to my time now. And I have worked on that, and I am working on that, and I'm going to continue to work on that because it's not something that happens overnight. It is a continuous process. Question 2 is, how are you in your own way? That was so easy for me because I talk myself out of everything. I talked myself out of everything. I'm still learning and getting used to not doing that. I'm very sensitive about things that I am passionate about. If I'm very passionate about something, and normally if one person told me like, oh, that's not gonna work, or you're not doing a good job at that, I would give up. And that's something I didn't realize until a few days ago when I did shadow work on that. I didn't even realize I did it so long. When I was younger, I used to love to sing because my dad sang. And one person told me that it's unrealistic to have that as a dream. You're not going to make it as a singer. And I gave that I've had, most of the business that I've had people say like, oh, well, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be able to do it. It's not going to work out for you. And so I gave up. And I didn't realize that about myself until recently. And I used to tell myself like, oh, well, it just wasn't working, or no, it just wasn't working at the time, or it's not for me, things like that. And that wasn't the case. I was in my own way. I was letting people get to me, and then me telling myself like, okay, yeah, you're probably not good at this. Question 3 for day 2 was, why is this my story? It all goes back to the recognition part. If you haven't watched part 1, definitely watch it and you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'm a person who loves recognition. So anytime I don't get that recognition and I get negativity, I give up. That's my story, and that's my story because that's all I've known. And now I'm learning to not need that recognition, not care if people say, oh, it's not going to work. Not care if people say, oh, you're crazy because you're doing witchcraft. I don't care now. I don't need that recognition because at the end of the day, I'm going to be happy with myself. And I know that there are people out there on the same journey that I'm on who appreciate my content, who appreciate my feedback, who appreciate my journey. After watching that video, I have just decided to live in the moment, continue my journey, and continue to live day by day instead of worrying so much about the future and dwelling on the past. If you have any questions, if you want more information, definitely message me on Facebook at Beautifully Grounded, or on Instagram at Grounded Beautifully. Make sure, like always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, and give me some feedback. I would love it. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you.